Hi, Cups.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
You're not at the airport. Yay.
I know. I know. It has been excessive, it seems like, but not traveling next week. So
Oh,
that's
well.
good. That's good. It
How was your week?
was good. It was good. Had a
Good.
productive
Hello.
week in Louisville.
Hi, AM.
Hi, Noor. Hi, Cups. How are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
Mm.
I don't think we've met
I'm
before, but I've seen you on calls.
yeah.
Yeah, she's our new PVA. She's her Brandon. Her client is Brandon. So
Oh, no
yeah.
pressure.
Sorry to hear that.
No pressure whatsoever.
No, she's doing great. She's doing
No, no.
great.
Yeah.
Are you
I
in Cairo as well?
Actually, I'm from Alexandria.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah. But yeah, like I'm based in Alexandria, but I go to Cairo, of course. Of
Okay.
course, I go to Cairo. It's the city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a drive? Is it a drive? Is it a?
It's like 2.5 hours, or
Oh,
like maximum it's 3 hours drive.
hey, Chris, how are you today?
But it's cute.
Good, good. We're gonna have to, Cups. We're gonna have to brush up on our Egyptian geography.
I think so. I think so.
We're working with all these great people from that area. Like I can't really picture
Oh.
it.
I think we need an offsite, deep learning experience.
Now you're talking.
You guys need to
That would
come.
be cool.
You guys need to.
Right, exactly. Brandon, when's this
No,
field trip to Cairo that we're all invited to?
hopefully this weekend I'm gonna get it worked out. I feel like I'm juggling all these things trying to fit in, and it'll be probably a good 10 to 12 day trip to really get immersed with the team and get all that going. And then
Well,
darn, I'm gonna have to work on a trip to Buenos Aires and start working on our second office.
well, we were just talking about that. Chris and I need to go to Cairo for a deep learning experience about building our brand.
Come with me. Hey, it's you guys pay for flights. I was just telling Nora I may get an Airbnb and just get something so I'd have extra bedrooms if anyone wants to come.
Okay, now you're talking.
There you go. There you go.
That would
Actually,
be
it'd be good.
fun.
You know, it'd be really good too if you guys wanted to do it. Is then I'd put you in a room with our personal brand assistants for half a day and let them learn from you guys on the best way to serve you. I mean, that's a big part of what we're doing right now. I don't know if did you guys see the episode with Carl Liba?
Yeah.
He's the curiosity coach. So I have him coming in a few weeks. He's going to do an hour and a half long, like lunch and learn with the team virtually. He wanted $10,000 to go to Cairo, and that wasn't going to be in our startup budget right now.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Chris and I agreed to do it for 4 each, so
There
we're
you
saving
go.
money.
There you go. You could save all sorts of money.
Yeah, but his content, his stuff is great. I mean,
Yeah.
I had coffee with him again today, and but yeah, working people through on how to be curious and ask good questions and really learn about how do you meet other people's needs. And that's something that we're going to work on. And Aya and I are learning all the things that we're doing well and the things that we're not doing well, right, Aya? With me
Yeah.
as Aya's client. Yeah.
Noor just told them that you are my client.
She told him
Uh-huh.
what?
That you are
Exactly.
my client, I'm your assistant.
Yeah.
And Chris was so happy. It was like, really? You're working with Brandon? And I was like, yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
really? Oh
I
my
was
God.
sympathetic to her challenges. I wasn't like fangirling her.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, so
Yeah.
sorry. Honestly,
It
he's
is,
a lot.
and I do. I tell Aya that too. The challenge Aya has is that, like, my reputation, especially being the CEO of Fist Bump, which does this, is it's a lot more difficult for her in some ways, but yet at the same time, it's the same because I don't want anything to go bad for Cups or James or anyone else. So it's we're learning and we're getting better, and our systems are getting more refined so that we have a lot of consistency. And I think Carl's going to take us to a new level. And he's coming on as a fist bump client too. We just solidified that this morning. So Nora Butch, Sadala Aya,
Awesome.
yeah, Omirium's on there too. So, hey, couple things. Then and then we're going to go in. Cups is leading today, and I'm supporting Cups, and we're going to talk a bit about time management. But one of the things that so Carl has been coaching me as well, and one of the things that Carl has really challenged me on this morning was to get my Facebook group up and running again as a mini kind of a mastermind, and going in there and doing 5-minute quick videos on the things that I'm thinking about as a business owner, including with this, not so much social, but talking about networking, because that's personal brand and networking and relationship building is really where I think I'm the expert. And as you guys know, the social selling stuff, I think I'm good at it, but I'm not the expert at it. In my opinion, I think the personal branding actually elevates any of the selling better anyway. So I'm going to start doing that because my coach told me to get off my ass and get it done. And so I will send you guys links to it and invite you to it. No pressure, but any support you want to give me over there, I would be grateful, because this is getting me outside my comfort zone. And that's why Carl's pushing me to do it more. So I'll get that shared over with you guys and appreciate it. Before we jump into Cups, any questions, anything you're noticing that you're not understanding inside of LinkedIn or with social or from content, anything in that realm that is kind of a like, this is an itch that I haven't been able to scratch over the last week or two that we can collectively take on together?
I'll do a little bit of share. I sat in on a 40-minute LinkedIn presentation yesterday, which was like it was, I think, entitled "Stop the Scroll" or something like that, like how to produce videos that stop people from scrolling past your stuff. Yeah, so I sat in on it. It was fine, but honestly, everything that we're doing here, like what it did for me, is just reinforce like what we're learning here is what is being preached by LinkedIn. So that was, I guess, nice to kind of see that. That said, I still haven't been able to kind of make that leap to being consistent with my production of videos, but it's all too clear that as I scroll through, my feed, and once you kind of do that, click on that first video, it just feeds you everything. And I am seeing, some competitors show up there looking, pretty strong with some good content and, some well-crafted videos that have little, mergers of information, and graphics and stuff like pulled into it. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. Like I need to step up my game on that end.
Yeah, that's good. I do see more of that. In fact, one of the things that we're looking at is, with our offering of fist bump, I see two things that we really need to give our customers options on. One is more video, even upwards of a 7-day a week or a 5-day a week video production, which obviously will increase costs because it'll take more time to do. But I think that's where video is going to be so important, along with what we're already added and adding on the website's not there yet, but we've already added the custom audience targeted campaigns in order to ensure that we're getting your face, your name, your videos, your messages, your thought leadership in front of the top. We're going to start at a list of 1,000 because that's what LinkedIn makes us do. But we want to get that in front of your top 1,000 people with the ads. And I think that with AI and the amount of content that's getting produced now, even though a lot of it is really poor quality content, it's just more content, this rise above the noise. And I think LinkedIn did this really well. Their new thought leadership ads, I think they're very valuable because you can now advertise through a personal profile. So when people encounter it, it doesn't have a big sponsored by and have the company name. It's actually your sponsored post is smaller font and it's on the right side of the post. And then it has the person's name. So it looks more like an organic post, even though it's a paid post and it's coming from the person. And what we see is the increased in inbound leads, inbound connections, and follower count. And I think that's going to be really important. We're turning that on and have turned it on my account, and we're just seeing the data of it. It's really impressive. So those would be
I'd heard about that a couple of months ago, so I'm glad you guys are kind of diving into that. I had heard that it's fairly reasonable, right? Just based on
Yeah.
the reach.
Yeah, it depends on the style. So their brand awareness ad is the least expensive. And this is one that I've been doing with clients around our trade shows, especially. And
Okay.
that's why I kind of did one of these things. We are having such great success. I've been doing these ads for customers for a year and a half now around the events when we're driving people to their booths and pre-event mind share program is what I call it, because it's a brand awareness ad, which means there's no click, there's no call to action. So it's inexpensive. But what we're really doing, this is our rise above the noise and be seen everywhere. That's where I created that. Well, I discovered that messaging because I was in a booth with one of our clients and we had done this about 4 weeks worth of the mindshare ads, getting in front of a custom audience of people who we knew or had high probability that they were attending this event. And what happened is people just started walking into the booth and they would go, "Oh my gosh, I see you guys all over LinkedIn, or I see you all over my phone." I wanted to come in and find out more of what you do. Two things were happening here. That saturation of being in front of them in a thought leadership ad and in an interview style ad, they didn't know it was an ad. Right? I had them as a guest on The Show, which I think you guys know. I have a show called The Show. I interview people on it strategically for promotional purposes. We do about a 6-minute interview, and then we put that around a paid campaign to a targeted audience, and we saturate their mind with them. And what happens is at the show, they just go, "Oh, there you are." And they walk right in and they go, "It's like, I've seen you everywhere and I feel like I already know you." And so they just walk into the booth. That's why we call it the booth magnet program. And as I was watching this with a couple of different customers that we did it with, and Seth's not here, but we did it with Seth's company. And I was fortunate there when somebody walked in and was talking to Seth, and they just said, "Oh yeah, man, Seth, I see you all over LinkedIn, and I've just been waiting for the show to come and talk to you." And Seth just looked at me like, "Holy shit, this is exactly what you said was going to happen, Brandon." I was like, and that was the guy from Impossible Foods, who I believe Seth said is one of their largest accounts that they brought in the last 5 or 6 years. So that's the value of these types of ads that we've currently been doing it around events. And I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier. Like, why are we not doing this in general, not just around a booth? And now we're moving it in general to increase that awareness and that top of mind. So I think those are two key things.
When you say 1,000 people, are you actually giving them 1,000 profiles that they're
Yeah.
targeting? Or are you saying I want VP of sales in this role, or that kind of thing?
We can do both, but what I find best, now we can do what's called a lookalike audience. We can load a list of a minimum of 500 people and say, LinkedIn, we want to find people that look like them. And they just give us, but what we can do is load a database as long as we have email addresses. We don't even need their LinkedIn profile. We need first name, last name, business name, and email address, even if it's not their business email. And we give it to them and say, this is the custom audience that we want to advertise to. LinkedIn feeds back to us and says, okay, you gave us 5,000 people. We've identified 3,692, whatever it may be. And then we go, great. And we advertise to those people. And again, we've done it as a list of people that we identified as either we knew were going to the event or we believe they were highly likely to be going to the event. So one way we did that, Cups, is we would go and build a database out of Zoom info.
Yeah.
That we believed were the most likely to attend a certain event,
Yeah.
build that as a database. And I think with like, I don't remember the numbers we did with Seth. With Ludia Consulting, I know we went and got about 10,000 names out of Zoom info. And it was a show that expected about 30,000 attendees. So we grabbed 10,000 and did it. And that was a one that they were frustrated with us because their expectations on pre-show of all the ads that we were doing, and they had a landing page for it, that we had some of the ads with the CTA of going to the landing page, but we knew it would be a low fruit activity. And so we did mostly around the brand awareness ads. So pre-show, they were like, Brandon, this isn't working. This isn't working. It's like, be patient, be patient. At the show, they had a goal of $1 million in qualified pipeline, and they came out with 4 million in qualified pipeline. And it was the people walking into the booth going like, hey, there you are, my friends. And they never even met them before. I mean, and they just, Lucas kept looking to me like, this really worked, Brandon. I'm like, yeah, that's, you got to trust the process a little bit. Mr. Gilman.
Hey, what's up, guys? Brandon, what's the reason for the strategy around a single event? Is there a reason why you do like a trade show event, or versus just, hey, let's just target my audience in general and then try and hit those?
Yeah, honestly, James, I don't know. I just had my mindset around, okay, this is what we do for events, and then this is what we do for non-events, and it was wrong. I'm like, why are we not doing this around every day? And when we're incorporating that, like you've got ads that are coming up to start promoting your show in order to start increasing that volume. Yes, you can target a LinkedIn group, Cups.
Yeah. So to James's thoughts, I was thinking, there's some communities online that are right in our sweet spot, and maybe that's what you were thinking, James, of local.
Yeah.
To your market.
So let me throw this out there, because we have the challenges with buyers actually making a decision, us being able to time being in front of that purchaser when they're ready to make the buying decision, right? That window is kind of getting a little bit smaller. So do you think that being in at a conference, the buyer has, okay, I'm here in this physical environment, I'm more likely to be in that frame of mind, versus it's 8 p.m. and I'm trying to wind down, from my day. I'll just try and get back with Cups, tomorrow. Or that's why I'm not going to go to the landing page, because, I'm not in the right frame of mind to make a buying decision or whatever. So I'm just curious, what y'all's thoughts are around the physical location and how that might influence, that call to action.
I'll save my opinion to the end. You guys share yours.
It's a good question. I don't know that I have the answer, James, but that's what's going through my head. Is the physical event seems kind of easy because they're walking the floor and they're gonna come by because the people gravitate to what they know. But you're right, in the online world, it's an interesting thing because you're right. They just click off and go somewhere else, and say, I'll get to that later. Cause I do that all the time. I sign up for webinars. I know I want to hear the content, but I don't go to it live. I listen to it later. It's an interesting concept. If we could corral them online, to act on something, right?
Yeah. So is it the commitment, the barrier to entry? It's a lot more difficult, and there's a lot more commitment to actually plan, pack, fly, arrive, go to the conference. So you've had time to kind of prep your mind, versus just stumbling upon a website, and it's way easy just to drop off. So I don't know.
I would say this, consider this too, and this is what I believe takes place. You've got the direct response, if you will. that we know in any given market, there's somewhere around 3%, give or take. So let's just generously call it 5% of people of an ICP are currently in market. So we want to judge how well something's working when we send it out to 100% of people, when in reality, somewhere between 1 to 5% are currently in market and even give a crap about the message right now. So we initially look at the data from a skewed point, a wrong perspective, in my opinion, anyway. So when we do these types of ads, we are able to attract those 5% who are currently in market, while simultaneously we're working on, you call it long tail, but we're also communicating with the other 95% of people because we're staying top of mind. Now, the reason I built this designed around events is because that's the time people are starting to think about buying product, right? They're starting about what new, because when I go to a trade show, I'm planning to do my research. So we were hitting them when they were thinking about this. Even if they weren't quite in market, they were open to the research. They're open to new. But I believe the reality is that if we extend the analogy where I say that LinkedIn is like a 24-hour conference, how do we use LinkedIn? Well, we talk about with the fist bump community, we're always using LinkedIn to network, build our community, right? Which is true, but we're also always using it to learn what's new, what's out there. It's almost a trade show mindset 12 months out of the year. So I believe if we're in doing these types of ads and doing a mixture of talking head, which is our own videos, which are good, but I believe this is where we bring in that back strategy around everything around the event was get rid of the talking head, because everybody's tired of seeing the talking head. When you're a talking head, our human spam filter goes, I'm being sold. But bringing in that strategically, getting, cups as an example, strategically getting you in as a guest on the show, where we've done the yellow brick road work of knowing what are the 3 things we want your ideal customers to understand and the 3 things we want them to believe. And it may not be 3 and 3, it might be 2 and 2 or whatever, but what do we need them to understand and what do we want them to believe? Let's put that into the form of questions and then set you up to be the expert by asking you questions on a show. And then using that to put in front of them with paid thought leadership ads, because now you're not a talking head, you're a guest on a show. The questions presumably are not set up to make you look good, but they are. And then you get to be there and answer questions. And this is where, like, some of the things we've seen, like that one video, which was the best one we have done in the last year and a half, it was 4 minutes and 45-second long interview. And 28% of the people who started watching it watched the entire freaking video, a 4 minute and 45-second video. It was in interview form. It looked more entertaining and educational than talking head. I'm going to get off my soapbox because I can very easily stay on that soapbox. But I believe there's that we're talking to 100% of our market all the time instead of the 5% who are in market. And we're establishing that credibility. We're establishing ourselves as a trusted advisor, and we're hitting those 2 key goals. I see you everywhere, and I feel like I already know you. And that starts to make the long tail that much more valuable with inbound. Any thoughts or questions on it? I'm taking a bunch of cups this time.
Oh, it's not my time. It's our time. So
That's our time.
good.
That's true.
It's our time.
Yeah, I apologize. I had to jump off for a couple minutes and handle a thing. But I guess what I would add to this is somebody who's in the trade show and event industry is the more that we look at the motions of showing up and doing a trade show and trying to stand apart and be above the noise, and the motions that we do on LinkedIn, they're so similar. They're almost the exact same thing. They're just digital realm versus in-person realm. But a lot of those steps are similar. So Brandon, kind of what you were saying, I think it all ties it together. And then
Yeah.
the other thing I'd add to that is just the idea of educating people versus selling them. It feels like a whole different thing. No one's in general, no one's opposed to being educated. We're almost all opposed to being sold to, right? So how do you change what the flavor of that message is such that it feels like I'm learning something versus being sold?
Yeah.
What's the difference? I mean, how selling versus educating?
I think they're very nuanced, and if selling is done well, it looks like educating. But if selling is done poorly, then it's like pitch slap, here, buy my shit, which we see all too much, on social or in direct messaging, or done poorly on the trade show floor when I go right past the opportunity to build a relationship and get to know you, and I go right to, like, you want to see a demo? You want to see a demo?
One things I've learned from, I don't know how to lower my own hand. I can see it on everyone else's, but not mine. But okay. One thing that I learned, James, with Carl coaching me, I'm really focused on the tone and the style of my content right now. And this is really important for our PBAs, for our team, as you're creating content for our customers. I'm beginning to ask myself before I create content, what's the question that my clients have that I'm answering? And it changes the tone of my content. It moves me. My tendency is to lecture. And I don't want to lecture, but my tendency is to sound more like a professor, go, let me show you how to do something. It comes with all my experience and what I've done and what I've learned and part of my personality, but it's the wrong approach to creating content, to come at it conversationally versus, as I say, do you speak like a billboard or are you encouraging a conversation? So the tool that I'm using right now, that mental tool before I create content, and you and I have got to get better at this, is what's the question that they have that I'm answering? And then use my content to answer that question and in the style of answering a question instead of sounding like. That's one hack that I believe is helping me change my content style that I leave out there for you guys to consider.
Yeah, I do think that's a big piece of it is understanding what that potential buyer, if you want to call them that, is really hoping to get done, right? And if you can truly have that empathy with that buyer, then that's when you can really write content that matters, right?
Yep. And that's where I think the back end work, the go slow to move fast, is, do you truly understand your ideal customer? And then secondly, do you have a yellow brick road? What are those three things that you believe, if they understood these three things and they believed these three things, they would demand to speak with me? Doing that work is so important. And I've been guilty of this, like, oh yeah, I think I got it. And then you move forward and everything else is half-assed. It's half as good as it could have been. And we wonder why we're spinning, and we're not getting the conversion rates that we want or we think we should have. Did you do the foundational work the right way? For our team, are we doing that foundational work well with our clients in order to make sure the content's really hitting? Or are we speeding through it to check the box and say, oh, we did the work, but we didn't do it well? All right. Cups, I want to hand off to you with this
All right.
setup.
All
Cups
right.
and I were.
So, yeah,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No setup. I don't need to waste any more time.
I
Everyone
was
knows
thinking that now let me talk to you about checking boxes. so, so the anyway, so Brandon and I have been talking about this for a while, and I don't know if you guys know, but I wrote a book last year called Time Bandit, and the reason I wrote the book was not necessarily because I think I'm a literary expert or anything else, but because I've been coaching team members for 30 something years, and I've watched over the years people that adapt well to number one, the workload and change, and two, ones that don't. And one common thing I've just taken aback from that is that either the ones that know how to succeed know how to prioritize. And the way that they prioritize is usually in a way that I'm thinking is very connected to their hierarchy of values. If you're familiar with going through a hierarchy of values structure, for your personal life, your business life, or whatever, you can associate your priorities to those HOVs in a way that it just makes you think differently about what you're going to take part of, right? And that can be in life choices that we make. It could be in business choices we make, et cetera. So when you link those two, it becomes very powerful, in my opinion. And then there's, if you've read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, it just kind of really opened my eyes to the shift of work from, is everything a task, or can some of it be habits? And if we make it habits, do we excel at a different pace? And so when I think about that, so that's why I wrote the book. And I go back to this poor marketing lady in London that worked for me during the pandemic, and then before and after the pandemic. And what struck me is every time I'd sit down with her, I'd say, I probably shouldn't use her real name, but Harriet, you guys won't know her. And I'd say, Harriet, what is that you have in front of you? And she said, it's my to-do list. And it was 30 something tasks long. And I said, how do you even start that? I mean, where do you even start? Do you start at the top and go down? No, well, I know this is important, so I go here. And then the next day we sit down at the same coffee shop, and I said, that's your to-do list again. And it looks like you rewrote it. She said, yes, I rewrite it every day. I said, you rewrite 30 something things every day? Oh, well, sometimes it gets longer, and sometimes I can take a few things off. And I said, what happens throughout the day? Are you looking at this throughout the day? She's like, no, I get back to it. And that's why I rewrite it every day. And I thought, what an inefficient way of managing life. But more importantly, that had to be utterly frustrating, because she probably had in her mind when she started that day, I'm going to do these three things, but then something happened and it all changed. And then she gets back to it, and the next morning when she writes it down, it must be just depressing. And it was, because I talked to her enough to know. And it just, that to me was the real thing that changed the way that I was thinking about helping my team prioritize and then build habits. And so what I did in the book is just talk about how the two coexist, and you need to differentiate between tasks and habits. And if you do that, tasks have a unique capability. They have a unique outcome in mind, and they have a start and a stop, and it's something that you've got to get done for a particular thing. Habits are things that you want to build. And the amazing thing about our brain, we all talk about AI, we all talk about automation. Our brain is the biggest automation tool that you have. And once you train the brain to do certain things, it will do it. I'm sure you have them today. When you wake up in the morning, you probably do the same set of things in a same sort of order. And the reason is because you've created a neural pathway, and those are the habits that you've created for yourself. You can add to those, you can take away those things. And it doesn't have to be in the morning, it can be in the evening. And you can start doing things that you can start building those habits. So that's the methodology in a nutshell. And I hope I wasn't preaching too much to you, but there's a big problem, I think, with people that have a to-do list that have habits and tasks on it. So if you have a to-do list and you have, I need to send this proposal, and I need to create something and do this and that, and it also has go for a run or pick up the children or whatever that is on your to-do list, those don't belong on your to-do list. You're just cluttering your mind. And if you can separate the two, you're going to be much more efficient. And if you can build the habits that give you your long-term goals, you're going to get there. And if you read James Clear's book, 1% improvement every day just has this exponential improvement over time. So what Brandon and I have been talking about in this context, but by the way, I will give you a quick sales pitch. I do 90-minute workshops on this stuff for teams, and help them work through it and do that. I also have a mobile app that's out now. If any of you guys want to get it, you can. It's $23 a year. It's early, so we're still working through some of the bugs. I'll send you a book. I've also got notepads, which you'll see a little bit today. So all that stuff to help you learn the system. And I'm happy to send books. Now, Egypt, I'll probably send it one group to you, or sit, as opposed to sitting individually. So that's the sales pitch. Anyway, what we talked about with Brandon is about if you're building your personal brand, how do you prioritize and how do you build habits? And these are my guesses. And we're going to work through this today in the 25 minutes that we have. And Brandon, you can correct me. I'm going to share my slides, and it's not a bunch of slides. It's just what I kind of put together in a way that's priorities and habits that might work for you guys. So let me share my screen. And what this is this isn't the app that you're seeing. This is actually a notepad that I created for those workshops. And if you're familiar with priority matrices, I follow the pattern of a Eisenhower matrix. And what an Eisenhower matrix is you have things that are urgent, you have things that are not urgent, you have things that are important and not important. So if you look along the axis here, you can see the different elements. And then what that does is it creates quadrants. And the quadrants this is a good workflow up here at the top. You can see things that are urgent and important, you do first, you do now. Things that are important but not urgent, you schedule for later. Things that are not important but urgent, you try to delegate those off. And then things that are not urgent and important, just stop doing. Or maybe it's an aspiration that you want to park and you want to get to it in 6 months or when the time's right. But that's the way that priorities work. So again, if you think about those quadrants, they're pretty significant and pretty challenging in the sense that they confine you to those areas, but they also can give you liberation in your time, because you're not spending a lot of time in the urgent, not important works. You're finding ways to delegate that, and delegation may be to AI, could be to an assistant, it could be that work needs to go to somewhere else. So the more you can get off that plate, it could be scheduling emails using the scheduling thing in Outlook as opposed to other things. So it's little things to get those off your plate. The scheduling is a big relief half the time, because people think about a big project and they're like, oh, it's not due for another month. And I have this conversation with students a lot. And so that scheduling can occur. It can just relieve you in what you need to get done today, because you're still worried about that big project, but you can refocus on this urgent quadrant, which is the do first quadrant. And then with habits, the thing with habits is they're usually small incremental behaviors. Certainly the big ones that we think about is I want to get in shape. So, what are the habits that are going to help me get more healthy? Or you may be thinking about learning a language. So the habit is how much time do you spend every day on that language? Things like that. But in work and in personal branding, I'll give you some examples in a minute. Those are habits that you may do daily. They could be every other day. They could be just business days, or it could be weekly. So while this particular tracking mechanism is set up for a weekly in the app, and in other mechanisms, whether you use our app or not, you can set it up where it's once a week or it's twice a week or whatever it may be. But the key element in habits is tracking it and seeing a visual that you've done it. So we talked about checking boxes. With habits, it's very healthy to check a box because we all feel good about doing it. We did that 3-mile run today. Check. We studied French for 15 minutes, check, and it reinforces it. And over time, you don't need to track all your habits because they just become part of who you are. So, and if you want a good example of this, I wrote a post about it yesterday. I stopped drinking last November, and I still to this day, I track it as no alcohol. And, but what it did for me is just that one little habit. I started learning about what alcohol does to the brain and things like that. No, I'm not preaching about alcohol, by the way. If you want to go have a beer, go have a beer. But the point is, when I started tracking it, I started immersing myself in that lifestyle, and it helped me be healthier. So that's a good example of what the power of tracking it does. So enough with the preaching lesson. So let's talk about the power of branding and what I think are the priorities in branding. And this is where I hope we can kind of you tell me that's wrong or this is right, or you want to add to it. So if you take the quadrant of priorities and you think about your personal branding and what has to happen in the do first category, well, there's things that come up every day that you want to be present. You want to be in the face of your network, and that could be responding to messages and posts. It could be engaging with your industry. Maybe you're following companies like I do. I follow Humana and Elevance and United Healthcare. And so I want to engage in that community, but that can't be something you do later. It has to be something you kind of do while other people are looking at that post that Humana put out. I need to go out and make a comment on it because all of a sudden all the Humana people that are commenting on it are going to see my name. So those things are kind of where you would put in the do first category. In the scheduling category, why don't I go through these, Brandon, and then you can kind of kind of steer us in a different direction, the same direction. In the scheduling category, you may that you want to reach out to certain people in the network, but you want to do that in a very focused way, and you want to maybe use Sales Navigator. And I want to go look at all the operations people at United Healthcare. So I'll schedule time, and I'll go into Sales Nav, and I'll start doing that work in on top of each other instead of trying to do it, on the fly. Planning content is something I do on the weekends. I think, okay, what do I need to change, or what do I want to do? What kind of messages do I want to send? What kind of images do I want to create? So those kinds of things are scheduling events. Skill development. Chris, you just mentioned that you watched a webinar and things like that. These are things that you can schedule to continually get better at this social media thing, because it seems like it continually changes. From the delegation standpoint, you can use automation that's in Fistbump. You can, if you have a digital assistant, you can use that. You can use other mechanisms out there that are automation, like ChatGPT, to help you write some posts, etc. So the point is, you can delegate that for scheduling your post at a certain time, curation of the post using the studio for things like that, and then search ideas. And then, from a stop doing altogether, I think we all do it. We all have these digital distractions. I just need, what I had to tell myself is stop just scrolling endlessly. I mean, when I scroll now, I scroll with a purpose, and I'm looking for particular people or companies or industry events that are happening. So that's how I would use the matrix in personal branding. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great setup, and I really appreciate the way that you lay it out too. And let me dive into the meat of this, guys. So whether you have a personal assistant, you have Reem or Aya or Miriam or Noor or Sadal or somebody, then you're looking at the delegate, like what exactly are they doing for you? They're publishing, they're doing some comments for you, they're sending out some connection requests, things like that. But what's important, like when it comes to this digital networking and community building, where do you need to step in? And you've got to identify what's important. I'll share with you guys what's important for me, and then let you put it in your lives where you think it belongs. But for me, I look at Aya lays the foundation for me. She's posting for me. She's doing some initial commenting for me. She gets, my newsletters done. The things that I have to do. So what I need to do and putting in my habit is using our note, our communicator. We haven't come up with a name. Somebody come up with a name for this, please, so that we can call it a name. But, using the web app that's not yet a mobile app to send her my thoughts and to load pictures so that she has more of my content that she could use with my twin, and to create better content and to train the twin for better commenting messaging. But the most important things for me that I put in my calendar as habits, and then I put them in as time blocks, and Cups, tell me if there's a better way I should be doing this.
Yeah. No, it's perfect.
Is I call it my prospecting time. And I think I've got now 4 1 hour and 1.5 hour block. So 5 days a week on my calendar that I am looking at who are my most recent connections. And based on their industry or their title or their size of their network, I'm doing my research. Is this somebody I believe I need to know better? Is this somebody that, not from a pitch slapping, but looking at the bigger picture and the longer play, is this somebody I need to know better? Is this somebody who needs to know me better, right? Who do we know? Who knows us? And I'm using that time then to send out specific messages to ask people for conversations. The other thing that I'm doing is looking at comments on my comments. So Aya does a great job of getting me out there wider by doing a lot more comments than I would be able to do on my own. But I don't expect her to comment on my comments, because that's where I have to jump in. And I use that then to take things deeper. Is this somebody I really want to go deeper with? Is this somebody I want to know better? Is this time for me to take that and go into a direct message and ask them for a virtual coffee or whatever that right next step may be? So for me, it's that strategy and the system. You guys have heard me say this. I love strategies and systems, strategies and systems. What's my strategy? I'm using LinkedIn for digital networking and building a community so that I am known by more people and I know more people in my ideal customer environment. For me, I'm looking for partners and I'm looking for customers. Right now, I'm looking for more partners than anything. And I've got a criteria, my ideal customer profile, that I'm always looking through as a lens when I'm looking at any engagements I have in LinkedIn. I'm coaching and encouraging Aya on the work that she does for me with refining my ideal customer profile, constantly telling her, what I'm doing, where I'm going, why this stuff is important. And then using the app to go, hey, I just had a conversation with somebody that da 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 da. This is what I'm thinking. And I get that across the board to her. So I spend a lot of time on the three quadrants: top left, top right, and bottom left. And then as I'm learning things that are wasting my time, I'm throwing them into the bottom left corner and I'm just trying to get them out. So do first and most important for me, 5 days a week, I'm up at 5 and I'm out the door by 5:30 doing an hour of exercise, walking, run. I've hurt my back, so I can't run right now, but I'm walking for an hour every day. I'm back by 6:30. I'm up and out of the shower by 7 and I'm on my day by 7 o'clock. That is part of my, if I don't do that in the morning, the rest of my day feels thrown off. My mental, my emotions are more at risk to go all over. Mentally, I'm not as strong, I'm not as focused, I'm not as productive. And then on my networking and community building, I have intentional time blocks because, as you know, I mean, you look at part of our team, I'm getting messaged all the time. Do you have time for this? We need that. I have a question. And I've got to block off the time where I just turn off everything and I do my job so that I'm not pulled into other, helping other people with their jobs.
Yeah, what I would add to that is, so I want to talk about this particular matrix in a minute, but what you're talking about with time blocking is great, Brandon. And what I refer to it in the book is BAU, business as usual. So there's always time in our day that we have to schedule for business as usual. If you're a claims adjuster for an insurance company, you have to adjust 12 claims a day. So you've got to just block out that time. If you're in sales, you've got to prospect. Whatever it is that you have to do, you've just got to take that time off the table for other things. And one of the things that you're going to have to start doing is thinking about saying no, not necessarily you, Brandon, maybe it is you, but
Yeah.
saying no is not necessarily, and I think I put a blog out there about this a week ago or so, but saying no is saying yes to something else. And so what you have to do in a prioritizing situation is, if you say no to something, are you saying yes to something that's going to actually lift you further, do better things for you, help others, whatever it may be. But saying no sometimes has to be there just so you can say yes to other things. And there is only so much time in a day, and you have to decide what that is. Now, within this matrix, by the way, I use broad sweeping categories like networking outreach. I would never have that as a task on my list in my time-bounded app. It would be networking United Healthcare executives, or it would be very specific in what I'm doing. I use these in general terms for you guys just as examples, but when you're talking about tasks, make them specific, make them have an outcome that you're looking for, because that's what it's going to be. General things like content plan wouldn't be something that you would have on your task list, but you might have, Chris developing content for a particular trade show, or, it may be a new initiative you have, et cetera. So, sorry, Nora, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question that I've been kind of struggling with recently. So when I look at this, I'm not a big fan of like task lists because they overwhelm me. So
Yep.
I usually just like categorize my things into like 3 or 4 sections, and they're usually random. There's no system for it. But at some point, sometimes I feel like everything is important and urgent, and I'm not sure how to like prioritize what, because everything seems important.
Yes, everything is important. Everything's important to somebody for sure, right? But you'll find a way if you start practicing it in a way that is important and urgency. I'll send you a couple blogs I wrote on what is important. That's where you tie it back to your hierarchy of values. Whatever your values are for that particular persona, whether it's your personal life or your business life, you should have values that matter, right? And that could be achieving certain goals, right? It's what a hierarchy of values is about. It's about how we decide to live our lives associated with the goals that we have in life. And so once you associate your priorities to those values, it becomes pretty clear once you start doing it. Now, the difficulty you may have is, like you said, everything is important to someone, right? And that doesn't mean we want to minimize that. Doesn't mean we can minimize that. So then we have to figure out where it fits, right? So sometimes the scheduling block, Nora, is a great thing because you can say, you know what, I hear you, and that is very important, and that's a very cool project that we need to do. I just need to schedule it for Thursday at this time. We can talk about it, because then you're still acknowledging it and you're still working on it, but you can say that I've got these other priorities first because they align with something that I need to get done. Right. And so one of the things I learned years ago as a sales rep with a manager, I had a manager that would keep coming to me and say, hey, you need to call so-and-so, you need to do this, you need to do this. And it was great that he was thinking about how we were going to grow our business. But at some point I had so many things on my list. I said, okay, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to go build that proposal, but something on this list has to drop off. Which one do you want to drop off? And when I started having that conversation with him, he started saying, you're right, which one's more important? And we started saying, okay, this is going to have the higher impact. This is a bigger deal. This is a more important client, whatever. And that was associated with our values at the time. Does that make sense, Nora?
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Sadala, you had a question before, but you put your hand down.
No, actually, I was going to refer to the same point that Noor shared. From my side, the way I look at it is that I do have multiple tasks or numbers of tasks. I try to, for sure, I prioritize them based on deadlines or when it should be completed. But I try to throw in like simple tasks between them so that I don't need to be feeling overwhelmed with tasks that I have. I just throw in small tasks like a quick email that needs to be sent or something like this, so that I would be ready to go ahead for the next one, for the next big thing. So this is something I usually do. Sorry.
Yeah, what you're doing there is time blocking, which is good, right? So what I do for this message and respond, I have 2 times during the day that I really do that. It's on my calendar that I have a LinkedIn, and these are not things that are just going to move the needle big on these other projects, but what it is, it's a daily thing that I want to do. And in fact, what I'm really doing is making that a habit, but I'm putting it on my schedule so other people can't take that time from me, right? So it's that kind of thing. So you're kind of in a defense mode. You want to do those little things because they are important to someone. So maybe just give yourself a little time in between other tasks, or at 11:30 in the morning every day. You do those, all email responses, et cetera. Just systemize it is a good way of doing it, which it sounds like you're doing a bit of. So. And Nora's, she doesn't realize it, but she's using a priority matrix because she kept saying I put them in categories. So it's the same thing. Let's talk about habits. I know we're short on time, but I just want to mention this. So again, these tasks are going to be more specific than what I wrote on this for today's presentation. I mean, these are going to be very specific tasks. Habits can be more general, and it is just about a discipline to build the tendency, right? So plan, curate, schedule. I want to do that on a weekly basis. Like I told you guys, I use Sundays. Sunday afternoon is a time when I plan my content. Well, curate it. I may do it on Sunday night. I may do it on Monday, or it may rely solely on Fist Bump to write some posts for me, etc. So those are the kinds of things you want to do with that. And daily habits, I think, are very important when you're trying to build something new or you're trying to break an old habit. Right. So if you're, for me, when I decided I was no longer going to drink alcohol, I had a habit on here daily. It said no alcohol. And I checked it off daily, and it was rewarding for me to do. But it reminded me every day that I do have that as an objective in my values. And so checking it off became product. Now I don't need it because it's not something I'm going to do. But you can see that for branding and Brandon, I'd like you to Brandon and branding are tied together, I guess. But it's hard to say sometimes. So, on a daily basis, you may be posting or you may be scheduling posts for tomorrow or next week or what have you, engaging, which we talked about, research, outreach. Again, these are more general habits or things that you're putting on your day and you're going to do them and they're more general. But the tasks that we were talking about earlier are very specific to a specific outcome. So I'll pause there. Brandon, did you want to mention anything about habits for branding?
Yeah, so this is my opinion, Cups. I want to hear what you think. A lot of times I start habits by thinking about the difference of growth orientation versus goal orientation.
Yes.
For me, what I've learned about me, and you all might be the same thing, when I just jumped right into goals, I tended to fail. I'm gonna go to the gym 3 days a week. I tend to fail. So two big things that help me is what's the outcome I'm looking for from this new habit? And focus on that, like know the why. And then also just start with a growth orientation. I want to go to the gym more often versus I want to go 3 days a week. Because then I'm not failing. If I don't go 3 days a week, I fail. And the way our brains work, when we fail, we tend to just not pick it up. So it's like a way of tricking yourself into moving. Like, so my walking habit, I stopped working out for a long time and I was getting out of shape. I was getting fat. I was not feeling good and all that. And what I did, because I learned how many times I failed over the years, and John Maxwell talks a lot about growth versus goal, I just started telling myself, I walk on a regular basis. I go for walks, right? It was real general. I go for walks. I'm a walker. I like to walk. And then once I started picking that up and I was like, oh, then I moved it into, okay, this is important because I've learned my emotions are better intact. I'm more effective throughout the day. I get more done and I have more energy. This is now my why. And then I moved it into more of a solid habit and says 5 days a week. I don't do the same 5 days every week. That's where I need to give my personality some freedom. But now I'm in the 5 days a week. And I give myself an out. If I only do 4 days a week, well, then one day I'm doing double my miles. So I have ways to not fail and still be successful if I'm not perfect. I had to do that for me as a cheat to make sure that I didn't fail. And I throw that out there if you guys can learn from my mistakes, because that goal, our society talks a lot about make goals, make goals, make goals. Well, goals work against you too. When you fail, we go, oh, I'm a piece of crap and I'm never going to be able to do it. And we go into all that negativity.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great way of saying it. And with the habits, by the way, it's okay to miss a day. It's okay to miss a week because of certain things. And it's okay to restructure your habits as you go. And I think if you keep that mindset that Brandon just mentioned, growth, it is about longer term, but you start today and just like that, I'm a walker, and you're just saying things like that. Or stacking, and I know James has a question, but if you can also stack things. So if you want to start walking and you're tired in the mornings and you sometimes feel yourself procrastinate that, put your walking shoes right by your bed. So the minute you turn your feet out of there, you see them. It's just going to be a cue for you to say, okay, drop them on and let's go. And so there's ways that you can help actually prompt yourself to feel that growth. So I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
No, I can so resonate with that, Brandon. One thing that I've actually been doing for the past 3 or 4 years is on a monthly basis. I'll put a point value to the habit that I'm trying to be consistent with. So if I don't do it, it's not the end of the world. And the goal is to see the highest average of accumulated points I can collect in 1 month. Yeah. So I could like screw up one goal for a whole week, but it doesn't totally take me out of the game for the whole month. And so based on how well I'm doing, I'll rotate the point value month to month to month. So again, knowing yourself, knowing your weaknesses and that own internal voice, that's just something that's worked for me and thought I'd be valuable to share to you guys.
Oh, that's great, James. I ran into a little software company that's doing that for salespeople. That point system. It's a really cool little. I mean, it's a simple
it's a game.
But cool. Yeah, exactly. How many points did you get today? And the points may come from different activities. Yeah, it's very cool.
Guys, I want to, Cups, thank you for all of that. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if we want to, if you have time and you can continue it next week, let's continue it. And excuse me, my phone's ringing. And keep going with it because I think this is really good. And before we go, I want to share this though, guys. Mistakes that I made when I first started getting into personal development, I went into the tactical of it. And for a long time, I wasted time and I failed at it because I hadn't done the internal work. I hadn't done the internal work that I actually felt that I deserved this stuff, that I deserved the outcomes. So I was trying to do the task of habits and goals and structure and all this stuff, but I hadn't cleaned out the, excuse me, I hadn't cleaned the shit out of my own head where I still felt like I didn't deserve it. I wasn't worthy. I wasn't good enough because for me, and you all know my background, I just had these old voices. And when you don't deal with the old voices, none of these personal development tactics, strategies, or systems are going to work because the old voices will dominate. And as soon as you miss a goal, you go, see, I mean, this is what I did. I'm like, see, you're a piece of crap because I was told I was a piece of crap all the time. So my challenge to you in the most loving and kind and encouraging and pushing way is get this right. You are worthy. You are valuable. Any of the old voices in your head that resonate that you're not worth this, that you're no good, that you're always going to be a failure, you're always going to be this or that, it's all lies. It's all bullshit. But you need a community like this to help bring you out of that and work towards moving forward. And then these things are exciting. When you put something on paper and you go, this is going to help me be better, and you believe that you're worthy of being better, it has a lot of power. When you're doing it and you still don't believe you're worthy of it, it's just frustrating. Cups, this was your day. Thank you so much for doing it. And I'd love for you to summarize us and bring us to a conclusion.
Well, I think from what I heard a little bit with Nor and
excuse me. Can I say one thing before Cups wraps up?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the reminder. I used the 4 quadrants for a long time and it worked really, really well. So I stopped doing it, which is some kind of character defect I have. You know, if something works really well, I'm going to figure out something better and then don't ever do it. But thank you very much for the reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and yeah, that's a good, I mean, I think, you know, what I heard Nora and Mohammed say, I think you think about those hierarchy of values, and the hierarchy of values, I'll send you mine because I'm not ashamed to share them. They're mostly personal, but there's a business tone to them that you'll see. And then you can prioritize clearly. You just know your goals, and you may have hierarchy of values that vary for your work versus your personal life, and that's fine too. But at least draw everything you're doing back to that, and it'll help you prioritize, and then it'll simplify because no one likes to be stressed. No one likes to get through the end of the day and go, "Damn it, I didn't do those things." You know, so just get it in order, and give yourself some grace. If you don't make it all work, you will tomorrow. You got tomorrow, so get up and do it then. You know, it's that kind of thing. Just keep it's all here in front of us. We just kind of have to work through it. So, and I'm happy to help anybody with any of this anytime. You can go to timebindit.io to learn more about it. And I'm happy, like I said, send me an address. I'll send you the book, and happy to talk one-on-one or anything else about these types of things anytime anybody wants some help with it.
If anybody in Cairo wants the book, let me know and I'll get books from Cups or we'll buy them and I'll bring them with me so we're not shipping them to Cairo.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Hey,
When are you
Cups,
going to Cairo? I missed that.
I don't know exactly when yet. I think it's going to be the last week of September.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yep. Or the best week is actually the first week of October for me business wise, but it also happens to fall on just my wife's birthday. So
take her with you.
Hey, yeah, that's awesome. Birthday trip, man.
Yeah.
So.
Chris, you were going to say something?
Yeah. Will I find Time Bandits in the App Store? I'm interested in doing that mobile.
Apple and Android. So Google Play if you're an Android user, and Apple if you're an Apple user.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome.
Yeah. And if you go to timebandits.io, you've got all the links there as well.
Yeah, at least yeah, everything you need there.
Good stuff, guys.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Love it,
was
guys. Great
awesome,
seeing
Josh.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you
y'all.
guys. Take
Happy
care.
Friday.
Bye,
Have a great
Noor.
weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Have a
Bye.
great
Bye all.
weekend.
Nor, I owe you some follow-ups. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.